I'm Anil Kumar. Let me thank all the viewers and subscribers for your great interest in my videos. Encouraged by that, I'm going to set up a website called Global Math Institute. It is still under construction. Your continued support will definitely help us to do a good job. The idea here is to understand and appreciate that mathematics is the only universal language, and fortunately, we can contribute in learning of kids and making a brighter future. So my approach will be to take up questions so that we could guide students very early on and set them on a track for success. Let's take this example. We need to find length, width, and diagonal for given area and perimeter of a rectangle. So let me read the question properly for you. It says, given area and perimeter of a rectangle, find its length, width, and diagonal. So in this particular question, we have taken three cases. One will try to show you how to do it. Area of 12 centimeters square, perimeter of 16 centimeters. That becomes your practice question. And the third part, I will twist it a bit and produce a question which you could see in competitive exams like SAT. I could actually reframe this question and say, find the length of the diagonal to the nearest integer with area of 120 centimeters square and perimeter of 46 centimeters. So same values, and you have four options, correct? So that type of question could come for SAT, and even we could have a challenging question for aspirants of IIT JEE, right? And the students who like to go to institutes like MIT. Now, for them, the same question could be, write a function to represent diagonal of a rectangle with area of 50 meters square in terms of its perimeter, right? So it's almost the same question. However, we will now see how different students are going to approach this question and solve, right? So let's begin with our junior students. 12 centimeters square is the area. So we'll try to solve the first part, which is we have area of 12 centimeters and perimeter of 16 centimeters. We want to find just the length and width. So for 12 centimeters square, we'll take these blocks, each of 1 centimeter square, let us say, right? So if I take 12 of them, then for sure I have area of 12 centimeters, correct? Now the whole idea is to somehow group them together so that we get the required perimeter. I hope you get the point, right? So a grade 3 student, for example, can do this question. So by experimenting. So now we have area of 12 for sure, since I have 12 of these squares. But the perimeter is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. But we need 16, right? Since we want to increase the area, let's make it flatter. So if I do that, I kind of got the solution, right? So let's see. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So we get what we wanted, correct? So we wanted area of 12 centimeters and perimeter of 16. So that is the formation, correct? So the rectangle will have length of 6 and width of 2. So that is how a grade 3 student is going to solve this question, right? Now let's extend and see how a grade 8 student or a middle school student will solve. Let's look into that solution now. But I hope you appreciate how a simple problem can be complicated. It's all level of understanding. And if you pick up early, you will definitely make it big. So let's move on and see how a middle school student will solve the same question. Now let us look into this question and try to solve in a way a grade 8 student will solve. The question again is, Given area and perimeter of a rectangle, find its length, width and diagonal. So we'll again do part A, where the area is 12 centimeters square, perimeter is 16 centimeters. So here is a rectangle. First thing is we should define our variables. So let us say that the length of the rectangle is L and width is W, correct? In that case, what is area equals to? So area is length times width. And what is perimeter? Perimeter is, you have to add length and width, right? So add length and width and then multiply that by 2, right? Twice sum of length and width is perimeter, correct? So that is how you get your relation. Now, as we did last time, let's try to get some values which can help us find the solution. So we'll work with part A first. So in this case, let us make a column where we'll write length and width, right? So we'll write length and width. So in this column, we will write some values of length, some values of width, and try to calculate the perimeter, which is equal to length plus width times 2. Does it make sense to you, right? So we'll begin with the first case where we know area is given to us is, we'll say area of 12 centimeters square, right? So to get 12, what can we do? We could have length of 12, width of 1. We could have length of 6, width of 2. We could have length of 4 and width of 3, correct? All these cases are possible. Now, for these cases, let us calculate the perimeter. So it becomes 12 plus 1, which is 13. And when you twice 13, you get 26. We need only 16, right? We need 16, not 26. Let's try with 6 and 2. 6 plus 2 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. That's what we need, correct? So we got what we need, which is 16. And therefore, the solution is right there. So we got length and width. Now, how do we get the diagonal? How do we get the diagonal? Now, in middle school, you learn about Pythagorean theorem, right? So here we know this is length, this is width. And let's say diagonal is D. Then we know that D square is equal to length square plus width square. So the diagonal D will be square root of this sum, length square plus width square. Does it make sense to you? Correct? Now in our case, we know what length and width is. So we know that now for us, length equals to 6, width equals to 2, right? So what is the diagonal? Diagonal will be equal to square root of 6 square plus 2 square. That's it. Which is equal to square root of 36 plus 4, which is 40. So square root of 40, which could be written as 4 times 10 or 2 square root 10. And the units are centimeters. Does it make sense to you? Correct? So that is how you can do it. You can find the diagonal of the rectangle with given area and perimeter. Perfect. Now I'll request you to do part B. So this was A for us, correct? Now you do part B, where area is equal to 48 centimeters square, right? So again, we'll take combinations, correct? And then do it. So can you pause the video and solve it yourself? Here is my suggestion. So this time I have lesser space here. So what I will do here is make a horizontal table, right? We'll work with options, correct? As limitation of space for us. Now, let us say we write length and width. So the length for us could be 48, right? So it could be like 24 times 2 is 48, right? So that gives us 48. Now for that, what is the perimeter? So perimeter is, we have to add them and multiply by 2, right? So perimeter in this case will be 26 times 2, which is 52, correct? You add them to get perimeter and then multiply by 2, correct? That is what perimeter is. These are the formulas to be used. Clear? It doesn't work since what we need is 28, not 52, okay? So we can try some other values. Right, so let's try this time 16, for example, right? So 16 times, we have to get 48, right? So 3, right? 16 times 3 is 48. Now if I add and that is 19 times 2. If you add, you get 19s, 19 times 2. So you get, what do you get? 8 and 1, 38 you get. That doesn't work either, right? So that doesn't work either. So let's try some other value. Let us say 12 and 4. 12 times 4 gives you 48. How do we get perimeter? Add, you get 16 and then multiply by 2. So when you multiply by 2, you get 32. So that also doesn't work for you. So let's try some other value. The other value could be, what else? 6 times 8 is 48. So let's try 8 and 6. So at times you may have to do few trials. 8 times 6, if you add them, you get 14 and multiply by 2 gives you 28. Right? So I purposely took some time to get you the answer. I hope you got it on your own, right? So you got 28 as your perimeter if the dimensions are 8 and 6. Is that correct? Now for this, what is the diagonal? Let me just fill up the diagonal here in limited space which I have. So the diagonal here will be square root of 8 square plus 6 square, and that is equal to how much? 64 plus 36 square root, and that is equal to square root of 100, which gives you 10. So for case 2, diagonal is 10. So I hope you now get the idea how a middle school student will answer this question, correct? So we have all the answers for part A and B. Now let's move on and see how in high school we should be solving this question. Now here is a similar question which could be there for entrance to some good university, right? SAT test, for example. The question here is, find the length of the diagonal to the nearest integer with area of 120 centimeters square and perimeter of 46 centimeters. 4 options are given to you: 15, 16, 17 or 18 centimeters. How will you do it? Let's begin by defining the variables, right? Let's assume we are now in high school. So we need to define variables, correct? So let us say length is L and width is W. We are given two things, area and perimeter, correct? So perimeter of 46, let's write down, perimeter is what? Perimeter is 2 times length plus width. In our case, it is 46. So we'll write 46 equals to 2 times length plus width. So 46 divided by 2 will be length plus width, which is 23, right? So 23 is length plus width. Now from here, we can write what width is, right? So we can say 23 minus length is equal to width. We get one equation, right? So let's call this as our equation number 1. Okay. Now we'll look into length and width product to find area. We also know that area is length times width. For us, area is 120. So 120 is length times width. Now, instead of width, I could substitute this value. you get an idea, right? So I could substitute width is 23 minus L, right? So instead of width, I'm writing 23 minus L, correct? So we get this kind of an equation. So let's expand it. Distributive property, right? So we get 23L minus L square. Now that is a quadratic equation. We could write this as always positive coefficients, right? For the leading coefficient. So we bring it to the left side, this becomes positive, minus 23 length L plus 120 is equal to 0. Now that's a simple quadratic equation for a high school student. You need to factor and get the solution, or you could use quadratic formula as you wish, correct? Now to factor, let's get back to product and sum concept, right? So we are looking for product of two numbers. Let us say we're looking for two numbers whose product should be, let me write down here. So we're looking for two numbers whose product should be 120. And if you add them, you should get minus 23. Now what could be those two numbers? This is what you have to think about a bit, correct? So what you get here is that the two numbers are 8 and 15. And both should be negative, since we want sum of positive, correct? And sum of negative and product of positive. So both should be negative. When you add, it becomes more negative, correct? So that is the combination, or you could use quadratic formula. So anyway, once you know these, you could easily write this as length minus 8 times length minus 15 equals to 0. So that gives you two options. Length could be 8 or length could be 15, correct? So these two options. If I put length as 8, then what is width? Width will be equals to 23 minus 8, which is 15. Do you see that? Correct? So that is how you get length and width. And if I put 15 here, then the width will be 23 minus 15, which is 8. In any case, we get length of, let's say, 15 and width of 8, correct? So we got that. Now the idea is to get the diagonal. Perfect. So that's the diagonal for us, and what we found in our case is that one dimension is 23, one dimension is 15 and the other one is 8. And therefore, the diagonal should be what? Diagonal D should be equal to square root of 15 square plus 8 square. Right? So you can use the calculator, but this is a straight number. Many of you will know about it at this level. So we have 8 square plus 15 square, square root equals to 17. So we get diagonal of 17 centimeters, which is option C. You see that. Now I took time to find the solution only to explain the process. However, it was as simple. Now that there's a trick. Let me give you a trick here. Let me give you a trick. So trick to solve these questions is what you found here, that the area of 120, that means look for numbers whose product is P times Q as 120 and the sum is P plus Q is half of perimeter, which is 46. Half of perimeter, 23. So straight away you will get your answer. Once you get length and width, then you can get the diagonal. Does it make sense to you, right? So that is the trick which could give you a very quick answer. But now let's move on to a similar question which could be asked for some big test like IIT JEE, and there I'll give you a formula which can help you to get the answer in a minute. That will be very interesting. Now here is the most interesting part of the video. We have scaled the question to IIT JEE level. The question here is, write a function to represent diagonal of a rectangle with area of 50 meters square in terms of its perimeter. So I'll provide you with a solution where we'll say let area be A, and so we'll do a general solution, and perimeter be P, right? So we'll just take a very simple general solution, and I'll give you a formula which some of you call tricks, right? You could apply those formulas and immediately get results if you get this type of question in multiple choice, right? So most of the time you do get multiple choice questions with similar parameters. So our approach is straightforward, just as we did in previous cases. We have a rectangle here whose length is L, width is W, and the diagonal is D, correct? I'm using capital letters. Normally we prefer to write lowercase letters, right? Okay, anyway, so in this particular situation, what we know is that area A is product of length and width, and we have another relation using Pythagorean theorem. This is right angle, and therefore we know that D square is L square plus W square, correct? This is what we know. We also know that the perimeter P is twice length plus width. So these three formulas are known to us. Now we have to somehow isolate D in terms of perimeter P. We know A, right? So basically in terms of perimeter and area. So I'll derive a very general formula in those terms, correct? Now we'll begin by squaring this particular equation, right? So let us square this. Square both sides. Then what happens? If I square this both sides, I get P square equal to 4 times length plus W square, right? So 2 square is 4. That is how we get. Is that okay? So that is what it is. So what we get here is P square is 4 times length square plus width square plus 2 times length and width. Now we know what length square and width square is, which is diameter square, and 2 times length and width is area. Do you get the idea, right? So what we're trying to say here is that length width is A, and this part here is D, correct? So that gives you a link between perimeter and the diameter, the diagonal, correct? So I could write this as perimeter square equals to 4 times. So this is diameter square, correct? Diameter square plus 2 times area. Now this is the most interesting example, rather equation, which is going to help you in many solutions. So that's a key, right? Now we need to just rearrange to get the diameter, correct? So that's what we will do. So we already have an equation which says 4 times diameter square plus twice area is equal to perimeter square, correct? We'll divide by 4. So we get diameter square plus twice area equals to perimeter square over 4. We'll take 2a to the other side. So diameter square is perimeter square over 4 minus 2a. And what is diameter equals to? Diameter equals to square root of all this. Correct? So that is how you get it. And let me put it in function notation. Right? So diameter, in this case we know area. So in function notation, I will write the diameter as a function of perimeter is equal to square root of perimeter square divided by 4 minus twice area. Now in our case, we know area is 50. If I substitute 50 here, I get perimeter square over 4 minus 2 times 50, which is 100. Do you see this? So straight away, we get diagonal in terms of perimeter. So that's a very, very important formula. Now, if you know this formula, you could have answered previous questions in just a minute or less, correct? So in the previous case, we knew area and also perimeter. So if I give you the value of perimeter, you can easily get the diagonal length, correct? So length of the diagonal is equal to square root of perimeter square over 4 minus 10 square, right? Or in another way, I could write this as half of perimeter square minus twice area. Do you get the idea, right? So let me write down here that diagonal of any rectangle could be written as half of perimeter square minus twice area, square root. So that is the formula. So at times in multiple choice questions, you could also be given few formulas to match. So there also this derivation can help. So I hope you understand and appreciate how we began with very simple example, developed a model using these simple squares, and then built up an equation relating diameter with area and perimeter. Now these kinds of equations can really help you to answer multiple choice questions in no time. I hope you understand and appreciate what we have done in this video. You see how small questions could be linked with big concepts. That is going to be our approach for Global Math Institute. We look forward for your continued support. Thanks for watching and all the best.